a little hot. There we go. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here. We're at Phillips Brewery. I want to thank Matt and the team for hosting us here. Easter weekend is coming up. It's treats for kids, but we also wanted to underline the opportunity for treats for moms and dads for the long weekend as well. A good chance to buy BC, whether it's Phillips or any of the other amazing brewers that are here in the province, vintners and others. I'm really inspired by seeing so many British Columbians stepping up to buy BC right now. And Phillips here in Victoria, one of the reasons why we're here is they make a real effort to use as many Canadian and BC ingredients as possible. And there are so many food and beverage producers like that right across our province. Wherever you are, look them up, find them, and if you can support them right now, I know they'd really appreciate it. In terms of government business right now, we're sitting in the House. We're moving bills through, including Bill 7, which is our tariff response bill, which includes key provisions around government procurement, how government buys things, making sure we're buying Canadian and BC or anything but American right now. And in addition, removing internal trade barriers, ensuring that we're able to trade right across Canada the same way we do with the United States. Happy to take any questions that people have. There were some good meetings this week with the ambassador for the United Kingdom to talk about trade opportunities with the UK, with Governor Gavin Newsom from California to talk about his concerns about the impact of the Trump tariffs on California and wanting to maintain those important people-to-people ties that so many of us have with folks, family members, loved ones south of the border, and business ties as well. Very glad to have someone like Gavin Newsom stepping up with recent litigation against the Trump tariffs and understand why they're launching that ad campaign to try to encourage Canadians to visit, even if I also understand why Canadians are not quite ready yet. With that said, happy to take questions from you.
Thanks so much. For callers on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. We will start with questions on the ground. We will start with Richard Sussman, Global News.
To pick up on the issue of procurement, BC Bid just has put something up here. BC Emergency Health Services is asking Yeti, a major water bottle producer in the United States, for a quote for 5,000 water bottles because of the whole hot-cold technology. Is this one of these examples where BCH should probably be revisiting whether they're seeking quotes from Canadian or international businesses before they go to an American company who has been known to produce these products in the past?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. This is exactly the kind of example of what we're asking Crown corporations and government departments to look at. When you're buying things, just like British Columbians at home, check the label, try to find products that are BC or Canadian or from other countries other than the United States right now. We're trying to send an important message to the U.S. about how important their relationship is with Canadians, whether it's through tourism, whether it's through buying products from each other. The forest industry that the president is attacking, the families that are dependent on that industry, both sides of the border, whether for building materials to build homes in the United States or in Canada here, jobs in mills across the province. We can't stand by and pretend that those things aren't happening and continue to buy from the United States when the president is attacking British Columbians.
To Richard for a follow-up.
On economic development, First Nation in central BC has filed a judicial review to overturn the province's decision to allow Mount Polley to expand the height of its tailings ponds. I know this was before the courts, but more philosophically, how can we ensure that we are building resource development in this province at the same time when First Nations could put up challenges that would ultimately lead to an inability to be efficient and effective and move quickly in terms of resource development?
Yeah, this is a crucially important question, not just in British Columbia, across the country. We have to, as a country, reset how we work with Indigenous people in the province. Going to court and battling it out and hoping that everything's going to work out okay has not worked. And it's resulted in stalled projects. It's resulted in massive additional costs, significant protests, and blocking of economic activity. It's just not the way forward. And so what we have been doing here in the province, we have taken a different approach. We have a number of major mine projects where Indigenous people are directly involved, sometimes as equity partners. We have a $1 billion line of loan guarantee for Indigenous partners. We have 9 clean energy projects that are, 8 of them are majority Indigenous owned. One of them is 49% Indigenous owned. Through this participation, when we have alignment between ownership of the project or benefit from the project, then that means that everybody's on side with wanting to get it approved and get it done as quickly as possible. We think this is really the way forward, and it's showing good promise. We hope to be able to talk even more about work we're doing in the Northwest and other places around mining. Mount Polley's a particular case. Obviously, there was a horrific mine disaster there that dumped a whole bunch of tailings into a pristine watershed because of a lack of government oversight of the engineering and of the engineers who were involved, allegedly. And you know, when I look at that and the community's anxiety around the mine reopening, I understand why they would be anxious. And just want to reassure British Columbians that we have reformed the oversight of professional bodies like engineers. We have ensured that the oversight is there around the reopening of the mine, around the operation of all mines in the province. But I totally get why the community is up in arms, including the Indigenous communities there, about how the mine is going to be operating, wanting that certainty that their watershed is going to be safe.
Katie DeRosa, CBC.
Premier, I know it was in French, but did you watch the debate last night? Did you any big takeaways? Obviously, one party was missing. And do you think that BC issues are being played prominently enough in this election campaign?
Yeah, no, I did not catch the French language debate. I did read the highlights, though. And, you know, here are my thoughts about where we are federally. Whoever forms government, whoever the next prime minister is, this is the most consequential election in a generation. Really determine the direction of our country as a whole. But that prime minister has to pull together all the premiers across Canada on day one and ensure that we are delivering 2 things. One is free trade across Canada by the summer. This is achievable. All the provinces are on side. We have legislation here in BC. We can do it. We can move quickly. We need that federal convening to make it happen. The second is support for workers who are affected in BC. It's workers in the softwood lumber industry. In Ontario, it's auto workers. In the prairies, it's agricultural workers affected by tariffs from China. Making sure that those workers are supported, that we're working in a coordinated way for the different impacts in different provinces is going to be absolutely crucial. That's got to be day one of the new Prime Minister's job. And that's not a BC issue or an Ontario issue or a Nova Scotia issue. That's a national issue, and it's the role we've been missing at the federal level that I really look forward to being filled again.
To Katie for a follow-up.
And also staying on the federal election, you know, polls are showing the island could completely change. Every riding could flip if the polls are right. A lot of conservative seats could be picked up in the Northern Island. First of all, does the collapse of the NDP hurt your party? And do you have any opinions on Poilievre sticking with Aaron Gunn as a candidate in the North Island?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's hard to know where everything's going to land on election day. Some of these aggregators are notoriously inaccurate in terms of a seat-by-seat projection. But I will say it's obviously going to be a challenging election for the federal NDP. There are some exceptional NDP MPs serving right now in Ottawa. I think of someone like Laurel Collins. We're here in her community right now. I really hope that Laurel's return to Ottawa. She's such a good fighter for British Columbians, for people on the island. I hope that those hardworking NDP MPs are able to return to Ottawa because they've done some good work for Canadians. Every Canadian, though, I know is approaching this ballot and this ballot question, understanding the seriousness of the question ahead of them, the direction of the country, and I encourage people to get out and vote regardless of which party they support. In terms of our party here in British Columbia, we're glad to have the support and the ongoing support of British Columbians, the important work that we're doing. We don't take it for granted, and we're going to work hard every day to make sure we're delivering for them in this incredibly challenging time.
Rob Buffum, CTV.
Well, hi, Premier. You met earlier this week with Gavin Newsom. The same day you had the meeting, he issued some videos online encouraging Canadians to come travel to California. and you've repeatedly discouraged people from doing that and said, hey, your family made the tough decision to cancel a trip to California to Disneyland. It must have come up in your meeting. What did you tell them? And are you worried there might be any form of retaliation, whether it's in the film industry or not being as open to our lumber?
Yeah, had a really good conversation with Governor Newsom. He is an ally of Canada's, an ally of British Columbians in this fight with the Trump administration over their nonsensical tariffs driving up costs for Americans. Recently, he shared with me that they would be launching litigation against the tariffs, that they have a war chest to challenge the Trump administration in the courts. It's difficult for me because here's a guy and a state, a major economic partner of ours in British Columbia, on side on the tariffs, fighting the Trump administration. But I know for myself and for British Columbians and for Canadians, I'm not ready to go to the States. And I wish him the best of luck in the fight. I want to keep those strong people-to-people ties, and we'll find ways to connect and support each other as people across the border who are disgusted by what the president is doing. But at the end of the day, for British Columbians, for myself, we're not ready to go to the States and provide that support to the States when the president is attacking families here.
To Rob for a follow-up.
And just wondering about this buy local. We've got this long weekend ahead. Can you maybe speak to your message in terms of support? You've talked about it a bit already, but the idea of traveling within BC. And also, I gather in the leaders' debate last night, there was a lighter moment talking about this issue that all the leaders were facing, buying local. Are there some legitimate challenges you and your family or others might be facing with doing that?
Yeah, I think it's for all of us. It's the thing that we can do that sends a message. Is in terms of the groceries we buy, where we vacation, how we spend our time and our money, is the way that we're able to send a message to the Trump administration. And I've seen in the press, and I'm sure many of you have as well, that flights to the United States have dropped off a cliff. That the tourism industry is strongly registering that Canadians are not traveling to the U.S. right now. And that is a multi-billion-dollar impact that has meaning in the United States, that is pressuring the Trump administration, that is resulting in the kinds of things that we're seeing, which is the walk back of tariffs, to talk about agreements following the federal election. But we have to keep the pressure up. We cannot stop right now because we know as soon as we ease up on the pressure, the president will go back to his preferred tactics of attacking us. And by the way, we are currently under attack, even though the reciprocal tariffs have been removed by the president or put on a 90-day hold. We are still uniquely in Canada facing the softwood attack, the auto parts attack, and the steel and aluminum tariff attack. We can't ease up the pressure on the U.S. right now.
Alec Lazenby, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. We have less than a month left to go in session. Your government announced earlier on that they would be expediting 18 natural resource projects. Just wondering, in terms of that, how are you looking at doing that? Could we see legislation prior to the end of the session? And how are we looking at expediting those projects?
Yeah, thanks, Alec. We still have some legislation to introduce. We will be introducing legislation to expedite projects in the province. There's two parts to it. One is our internal part as provincial government, our processes internally that take too long. This is where our focus will be. The other part is our relationships with Indigenous people, and all of these projects are land-based projects, so they require cooperation and support of Indigenous people. And so that work also will not be through legislation, that'll be through relationships we've been building across the province with those nations, as well as equity participation in the projects to ensure we're all aligned and wanting to see the success and delivery of the project, because everyone's going to see revenue and benefits that flow from that.
Follow-up from Alec.
Could we see that legislation prior to the end of the session, or will we have to wait till the fall?
That'll be this session.
Next, we're going to Justine Hunter, Globe and Mail.
Sorry for being in the corner here. When we talk about Western alienation, it doesn't always mean British Columbia, but certainly with you raising a number of grievances over the last few months, you've kind of added us to the mix. So I want to get your assessment of what the threat to national unity is right now in the West, And I just want to know why you've chosen to kind of bring BC grievances to the public in the way you have. Was that a deliberate move on your part to kind of join that?
Yeah, I'll be blunt. I don't think there's any credible threat to Canadian unity. I think that people like Preston Manning are seeking clicks and playing to a political base that is completely disavowed by the vast majority of Canadians, whether in Western Canada, Eastern Canada, Central Canada. It is a tired trope. It is a waste of time. And it is an attack on the unity that we have right now as a country, standing up to the Trump administration for political partisan gains. I hate it. I think it's awful. I want them to stop. There is, though, an important issue that needs to be addressed, which is that when we have a national government, a national Canadian government, the benefits and the attention of the federal government needs to be fairly distributed across the country. I'll acknowledge that's a challenge to deliver in practice. But there are some very basic things. If you have a federal program that delivers funds for the provinces, there needs to be a per capita allowance. It needs to be based on your population, the share of access that you get to that program. And that's not a hard thing. That's not too much to ask for, but it's failed to be delivered again and again. There are special programs for Ontario and Quebec that are not delivered to other provinces. And when that happens, it gives these opportunists the chance to get on Facebook and say, yeah, let's separate from the rest of Canada. It's nonsense, but it feeds that fire. So my advice to the incoming Prime Minister, whoever it may be, would be to do the basic fairness things. It's not profoundly difficult, but it will address, I think, a significant source of the fuel that these guys are using to drive an argument that is a dead end.
Back to Justine for a follow-up.
Thanks. So Gordon Campbell wrote an op-ed the other day saying that the solution would be to build a pipeline. I'd like your thoughts on that. Is that the solution to addressing the grievances in the West? And also, do you have a sense of what that gap is between what you would say was our per capita share of federal funding versus what we're actually getting?
It's federal election time, so everybody's out writing op-eds about their preferred issues. The famous saying is, to a carpenter, everything looks like a nail. Unsurprisingly, the advocates for expansion of fossil fuels continue to advocate for an expansion of heavy oil pipelines to the coast. It's not a surprise. They've been doing it for years, but my understanding is there is no currently credible proposal to do that even, so it's hard to know how that would happen exactly. But setting that aside, there is a serious issue of energy security, of ensuring that we're independent of the U.S., making sure that we're delivering economic growth in the country, and that we are prosperous as a people here in British Columbia and as Canadians, despite whatever may happen south of the border and an increasingly unpredictable situation. These are key conversations that need to take place between the new federal administration and the premiers. I think all premiers are on side for a pro-growth agenda and for finding ways to deliver that growth and that independence for us to stand on our own 2 feet. And the appetite, of course, is always to focus on these points of division. I don't think that a heavy oil pipeline to our pristine North Coast is the answer to all of Canada's challenges that we face. But we're going to sit down around that national table and find the path. And each of us is going to have to give a little bit to find the kind of growth and opportunity that we need. And that starts with internal trade barriers. It is not universally going to benefit everybody in every province. There will be compromises that will have to be made. But if we can make progress on that, which is a hidden tax paid by all Canadians, then we're going to be able to set a good path for the other work that we have to do as a country.
Wolf Deppner, Black Press.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
So there was a second part and I missed it. Yeah, so whether it's on immigration funding or whether it's on economic stimulus funding, I just watched, I don't know, what was it, $30 billion going to battery plants in Ontario, and we're scraping by going, please send some money to the tech smelter or to industries that are relevant to British Columbia. We don't have an auto parts industry here. We have different industries in British Columbia. So just making sure that those programs are responsive to the unique needs of each province and we have equal access to similar levels of funding, critically important.
Wolf Debner, Black Press.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for taking my question. And speaking of interprovincial trade, Federal Liberal leader Mark Carney has identified July 1st as the deadline for a free trade agreement or an agreement among all the provinces. How achievable do you foresee? How achievable is that particular date?
I think that is 100% achievable from the BC perspective. We have legislation in the House that we're prepared to implement immediately. It doesn't require other provinces to recognize BC. It allows us to go unilaterally and recognize other provinces' standards. And we are willing to be either part of a group of provinces that are willing to do that, and I've seen other provinces indicate that they're willing to do that. I think that the new Prime Minister, whether it's Liberal, Conservative, or NEP, that they got to get us together and drive this deal through and get it done, because we're unified in a way that I've never seen before on this critically important issue that has been a source of complaint for businesses across the country for many, many years. You know, just the wine deal with Alberta, you know, that we got. The first month was 3,000 bottles of wine sold to Alberta. The second month was 17,000 bottles in February. I think we're well north of 20,000 bottles for March that we sold to Alberta. These have significant economic impacts on British Columbians when we're able to get it right in a positive way, and we want to make sure that that's delivered.
To Wolf for a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. Earlier you mentioned that you had discussions with the British ambassador, if I heard you correctly. Could you talk about those discussions? And I suppose as a follow-up to that follow-up, how realistic is it for BC to shift its trading routes towards the United Kingdom? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Wolf. Had a great conversation with UK representatives this week with the ambassador. A couple of topics that I raised. One was that in terms of Europe, the UK is our #1 customer for lumber. We certainly see the possibility and the need to increase that resource commodity shipped to the UK. But realistically, you know, in terms of our geographic positioning, the opportunity for us with the UK is really around services. We have a common legal system basis. We have a similar language. And those kind of service exchanges are the great opportunity for us with the UK, and that was a key topic of conversation. Also, the UK has opened an office in Ontario, where if 20% of a project is procured from the UK, they'll provide the capital financing for projects. I had seen that they were doing that and wanted to discuss making sure that they were coming out to BC to present to BC businesses about the opportunity for capital funding. And we discussed how it could be used for mining and for other projects here in the province. And they have availability for that capital funding for critical mineral projects that they have needs for. We have many critical mineral projects here in the province that are underway, some quite advanced. And so there's lots of opportunity for us to work with the UK.
Mark Page, BC Today.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. Not to mimic yesterday's pop quiz question period, but can you give any specific examples of companies of contracts with American companies that have been canceled in favor of Canadian companies? And in addition to that, can you tell me, is there any sort of stronger direction being given within ministries to not do any new business with U.S. companies at all?
Yeah, so there are two baskets, I guess I would say. One is in terms of procurements that haven't taken place yet or contracts that haven't yet been signed. The direction is to work with Canadian companies first or with countries other than the U.S. Where it's viable. So if it's prohibitively expensive or if it doesn't meet the needs, obviously like any British Columbian, you're looking at the grocery shelf and like you could, but your budget doesn't allow it. We're going to have to make these decisions. It's not going to be at the cost of all the other values that we have as British Columbians. But the second is for contracts that are underway to identify whether or not those contracts can be exited with American companies and whether Canadian companies or other companies from around the world can be substituted for those American service providers. There is a bit too of moral suasion on contractors to encourage them with their subcontractors to choose Canadian products as well. We're encouraging them to do that too. I'll get you a list of decisions that have been made at the operational level related to this. But there have been everything from as simple and basic as magazine subscriptions, and media subscriptions, all the way up to procurement decisions that are being made right now that are worth millions of dollars to the companies involved. We are serious about this.
Mark, for a follow-up.
So it sounds like we're getting. I guess we got about 4 weeks left of this session. It sounds like we've got some more legislation coming related to resource projects. What other legislation can we expect, if any, from this session? In addition to that, could you comment on the ICBC legislation that was introduced yesterday?
Yeah, we are ensuring that we're removing barriers for particularly people in rural communities to accessing driver's licenses. We know that transit's not universally available in the province. We know it's profoundly challenging for people without a driver's license to get to a center in the province to do a driver's test. And so when the Ministry of Public Safety and ICBC looked at the data, looked at other provinces, they found that the exit test for the Class 5 license didn't add additional safety, but it did add an additional burden that some people just never moved on to a full Class 5 license. The data shows that experienced driving is what reduces the risk of collision rather than an exit test. And so what they're doing is removing that requirement consistent with every other province in Canada except for Ontario to make sure that we're making it possible for people to get their full driver's license. For so many people, and I'll know particularly Indigenous people from small communities, that whether or not you have a full Class 5 is the difference between whether or not you're able to access a job. And there are many resource jobs, particularly in rural communities, that depend on you being able to drive. And we want people to have access to those jobs without compromising road safety. In terms of legislation yet to come in during the session, the key pieces for us will be those related to ensuring that we're able to deliver the projects we're committing to as quickly as possible. So the single window regulator, for example, for transmission lines in the province, as well as expediting infrastructure in the province in terms of the construction that we need to do as a province to build our province and grow our economy for British Columbians, will be the key pieces remaining in the session.
We're going to go to the phone line for the last question and follow-up. We have Chuck Chang, Canadian Press. Chuck, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Premier, China is said to be buying more oil from Canada. I was hoping to get your opinion on, your stance on trade on that front, given the pressure that we're seeing from the U.S. And is that even a realistic option, given everything that has happened from foreign interference to issues with Hong Kong in the past? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. I do have a real anxiety seeing what's happening with the trade war between the U.S. and China, that Canada gets squeezed between these two massive economies, and that we're a bycatch in their efforts to try to hurt each other. So collateral damage is probably a better description. So that's the anxiety that I have, and we're starting to see a little bit of that. The impact, thankfully, has not yet been in British Columbia, but quite concerningly has been on fellow Canadians in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, around canola farmers, around pork farmers, directly impacted by this. We've seen a little bit in terms of impact on seafood. I think that there is opportunity for us to try to de-escalate in the same way we're trying to de-escalate with the United States and get away from tariffs with China. But I think that for British Columbia, our efforts around growing our markets will be really focused on countries with shared values around democracy and human rights and environmental protection, which is why we'll be focusing on countries like South Korea, Japan, Singapore, and there is a lot of opportunity for us with the EU and with the UK. It is impossible to replace the US or China as trading partners for us in British Columbia. We do ultimately need good relations with both countries, and we can all benefit from it. But I'm very cautious about not ending up in the same position with China that we are with the United States right now. We got to stand on our own 2 feet.
Back to Chuck for final follow-up.
Thank you. Premier, I was wondering, you mentioned a little bit about the contracts with U.S. companies. I was hoping if you can provide more direct answers to the situation with Quest and Life Labs. The coalition's an open letter in terms of calling for province to end its contract with Quest. Is that one of those that's even possible? And kind of what is your position on existing contracts with the U.S. companies providing services? Thank you.
Thanks. Well, the logistics of the LifeLab contract are pretty significant in terms of replacing it with a public option. But it's times like this when you have to look at all the options that are on the table. We have a contract with LifeLab through to 2030. There's a lot of instability right now with the strike. It's concerning to me. And this is an American company. But currently, to replace LifeLabs would be quite challenging. And we've been reliant on LifeLabs for a number of decades now as part of an integrated part of our healthcare system. So there are challenging contracts like this that are not easy to replace overnight. But I would caution all American companies that they need to be lobbying the president. They need to be pushing the president. They should not take for granted that operating here in Canada, while their president is attacking BC families, is a sustainable thing.
That's all we have time for today. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks very much.